Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back. Another Lakeside chat. I want to feature one album, and to me, a very important album for me and for my love and passion for this artist going back to 1975. Now, I'm recording this mid-June of 2025, and in a couple months, this album will be 50 years old. Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. This came out August 25th, 1975, just 2 days after I turned 21 years old. Now, I had gotten into Bruce with the prior album. In the store I worked at, my buddy Vernon kept playing Wild the Innocent E Street Shuffle, and there's a song on there that I fell in love with, and that was 4th of July, Sandy. And of course, I remember the Hollies version, very poppy, very upbeat, very harmonic, was multi-layer. Alan Clark, post Graham Nash harmonies of that band. Of course, Manfred Mann would do Spirit in the Night and a few other songs, and even Greg Kihn a little later would jump in the act with For You, I Came For You. But then I went back and got the first album, but in 1975 there was heavy anticipation for Born to Run. The first two albums, while getting some great reviews and critics loving it, hadn't really hit on the West Coast, but there was this huge build-up. We played that record in the store, The Wild and Innocent, all the time, from Rosalita to just all those epic songs. And what I latched onto is not that he was the next Bob Dylan or anything, but these epic story tales and these epic productions. I mean, they're like definitely rock and roll cinema. But of course, in 1975, when John Landau, the critic, wrote that byline, "I've seen the future of rock and roll." Columbia was about to drop him if this didn't do anything. And of course, I'm not here to tell you the whole story, but the song Born to Run, they worked on that for 6 months. The whole influence was that wall of sound, the Phil Spector sound, the multi-layer instrument. The thing about Born to Run, it's not a concept album at all, but it has these vignettes that Bruce was trying to create these musical landscapes, these cinematic landscapes, and he succeeded wholeheartedly. Now, you could argue that the thickness of that it may turn some people off today, 50 years later, like some people don't like the All Things Must Pass, Phil Spector himself doing all those layers. I happen to like that, and I like that that wall of sound that happened. Of course, Born to Run was that first song that they worked on for months and months and months. At some point, you could do overkill when you create things like that. Now, that song had David Sanchez on keyboards and Ernst Boom Carter on drums. And after that, they would leave the band, and of course, Roy Bittan on piano would come in, and Max Weinberg, the mighty Max Weinberg. The thing about this album, it's not only great rock and roll, not only great guitar, saxophone, bass, drums, it's got glockenspiel and that beautiful, beautiful sort of classical melodic piano playing of Roy Bittan. The glockenspiel and Roy's piano playing really add a whole layer to this album with these epics. Now, I've always loved the opening Thunder Road. It's probably my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. I'm glad they didn't start off with the single. I'm glad they didn't start off with the album title song, Born to Run, because that's a magnificent song, but it's almost a great palate cleanser after you flip the record back in the vinyl days of 1975. But I need to talk about this album, not just the album, but seeing Bruce Springsteen that year. I saw Bruce Springsteen first October 29th, 1975 in Sacramento, California. We were so hyped on this record. We loved this record so much that a bunch of us from the record store went up to see him when he first hit the Bay Area. And that was such a magnificent show, that October 29th, 1975. Seeing Bruce, it was like seeing some unworldly rock star. I'd seen so many shows in the 1970s, late 60s and 70s, but even though that was halfway through the decade, that was one of the best things I ever saw, one of the best performers. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But what really grabbed me was October 31st, Halloween, 1975, at the Oakland Paramount Theater. Now, the Oakland Paramount Theater was one of those decrepit, lost movie palaces on the West Coast that went through a revitalization a few years earlier. And they fixed up and cleaned up all the deco ornaments, and it's one of the great places to see music. I was fortunate enough not only to see Bruce Springsteen there over the years, saw Bob Marley there. I saw Boss Skaggs when he went black tie, just as Silk Degrees was hitting the charts big time. So many other great shows there. It's an amazing movie palace restored to be a concert venue. But that Halloween performance, October 31st, 1975, was really the best single rock and roll performance I've seen since. No one better. I've seen great shows, The Last Waltz, The Concert for George, Pink Floyd at Winterland pre-Dark Side of the Moon, Elvis Costello, his first American show at the old Waldorf in San Francisco, the Sex Pistols, Winterland fiasco. I've seen many, many shows, and nothing comes close to Bruce Springsteen. I would see him again the following year, October, twice in the Bay Area. I believe once in Santa Clara, and then again at the Paramount Theater in 1976, October. And then I would see him at that fantastic Winterland show in 1978 for Darkness on the Edge of Town. So one could argue that Bruce Springsteen was the future of rock and roll in 1975. And of course, that fall he was on the cover of Time and Newsweek in the same week. And what was great about those live performances, and if you've seen Bruce live, you know what I'm talking about. And he did this his entire career. He still does it. I think the only person right now who's doing anything close to that is Nick Cave, where he comes out like an evangelist and just confesses to the audience and preaches to the audience about this musical thing. Of course, Bruce's subject matter is way different. But again, Thunder Road with Roy Bittan, not only on the Fender Rhodes, but on that glockenspiel. The glockenspiel, Clarence Clemens saxophone, Gary Tallent's bass guitar, Max Weinberg on the drums. 10th Avenue Freeze Out, which would become the second single, is probably the most commercial song on the album. It's got that kind of rock and roll, funky Memphis type of soul sound. It's just killer. I mean, he had more soul for a white guy than a lot of other rock bands that I've ever experienced. There are two songs on here that are literally epics on here. They end side one and side two. Backstreets with that beautiful piano, that thematic opening. And of course, Jungle Land at the very end of the album. A magnificent album that's held up over 50 years. It's definitely a style, but it's a fresh style. Even though it's 50 years old, it's just the essence here is rock and roll, but he expands on it. The energy of him performing live along with the sound of his album really kind of pushed things forward. And I remember in 1978, finally the follow-up to this album, Darkness on the Edge of Town. I was in Europe for 3 months, and I finally stopped at a record store in Amsterdam where they had the turntable set up. About 6 or 8 people were able to listen to records. And the 2 records I picked, I hadn't heard any music directly. This is before Walkmans. This is before Discmans. This is when you have to go and hear music in a record store or in a live venue. How wonderful is that? And the 2 records I requested to listen to in that summer were Darkness at the Edge of Town and Ry Cooder's Jazz. Happy birthday in a couple months, 50 years for Born to Run. It's got this wonderful cover photograph by the great photographer Eric Miola, and the design by John Berg at Columbia Records. A brilliant album, a pivotal album in the career of Bruce Springsteen, again, a make or break album that has been successful and really has lifted things over the years. I know everyone has their favorite Bruce story and Bruce albums. A lot of people like Wild Innocent. There's people that like Born to Run. I have friends that love Darkness on the Edge of Town and Nebraska. In closing, let me just say that the memory of seeing Bruce Springsteen live in 1975 is still near and dear to me. I remember that night like it was last week. One of the most incredible performances, the incredible rock and roll live performance I've seen in my entire life was Bruce Springsteen, Halloween, Paramount Theater, 1975. You probably heard the tape if you're a freak, and maybe you saw later that tour. That Born to Run tour went on for 2 years all across the States and into Europe eventually. So Bruce Springsteen, a great artist, a great activist. Rest in peace, Gary Talent and Clarence Clemens. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging with me by the lake. Mazzy loves you.
The screen door slams, Mary's dress sways. Like a vision she dances across the porch as the radio plays. Roy Orbison singing for the lonely. Hey, that's me and I want you only. Don't turn me home again, I just can't face myself